everybody. This is Alan Petersen with Meet the Thriller Author Podcast. Today, I'm going to be interviewing JP Choquette, who is an author of thrillers, mysteries, and suspense. And so I am happy to have her here with us today. JP, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Before I start asking you some questions, can you please tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a Vermonter, grew up in the state, and for those of you who don't know, it is a state, not a city. I've had people ask me. So I have a degree in psychology and started writing on a professional basis in 2008, full-time. I've written before that, but that's when I kind of launched my writing business.
And what got you to start writing and publishing?
Well, I've always loved writing. I remember as a kid, I was published for the first time when I was like 9 years old. And it was in one of those anthologies where you actually had to buy the book to see your little story in there. But I was so excited, like over the moon excited. And I think it just kind of grew from there. I wrote really bad poetry through high school and lots of short stories. And I had written several novels in my early 20s, none of which I finished. So then I finally finished and published my first novel, Epidemic, more recently.
Why did you choose to write thrillers? Are you a fan of the genre before that?
Yeah, I've always really liked mystery, suspense, thriller. As a kid, I loved Nancy Drew and Encyclopedia Brown and the Hardy Boys, and I think there's just something about the puzzles and the problem solving that I really enjoy.
Yeah, Hardy Boys. It's interesting too. This is the third interview now for the show, and Hardy Boys comes out a lot. Yeah, the same thing with me as a kid too. I think it was my sister had them or my brother. I don't know. They were there, and I read them, and that kind of got me going too. It's kind of funny. What are some of your favorite thriller authors when you were growing up, or even today? And have those authors inspired you as you began to write your own thrillers?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I've always really liked that genre. I read in other genres as well, but I seem to always have a book, at least one book going in that genre. And growing up, one of my very favorite mystery books as a kid was called Wait Till Helen Comes. And it's this creepy, like, ghost story set in New England. And I actually just reread it like a couple of weeks ago because I hadn't read it since I was like maybe in 4th or 5th grade, and it was still really creepy.
No, I just got to remember that one. Yeah, what is it with New England and Stephen King and all that over there?
I know. There's something about our environment up here. Oh, I really enjoy Sue Grafton, like her detective series. I love Louise Penny's series. Trying to think of some of the other, Lee Child. And of course, Agatha Christie is like a go-to.
Yeah, actually, I still read her. I still go back and circle back to her. She's incredible even after all these years.
Yeah.
So now, where do you get your ideas when you start writing? Do you like draw like real life events, or how do those ideas come to you?
It kind of differs. Like the first book that I published, Epidemic, the idea for it is about a viral outbreak here in the state of Vermont, in like this very rural town. And the idea for it came from a pandemic flu training that I had attended when I worked full time. And just sitting in that training, which, it can be like a little tedious, I was kind of doodling on my pad of paper and just imagining like, wow, what if that really happened here? Like what would really, what would the circumstances be, and would it be contained? And so that kind of planted the idea for that book. And others, some of it draws a little bit from real life circumstance. I think as a writer, we're always asking that question, like, what if this happened instead of that? What if she met him here? What if they never met? So just those kind of questions always are running through my mind.
And are your protagonists, are they based on like your own experiences or people that you know?
I think that all of my protagonists have a little bit of me in them. I think some authors do a better job of being able to completely separate from their characters. But I think my protagonists always have a bit of me in them. But I do try to stay with their voice and think things through in their perspective and not my own. So just kind of trying to separate it out as much as possible.
Do you have a pop culture or movies or that type of stuff outside from other books? Do you find that coming into your writing at all, or you try to keep that out?
I don't watch the news and I don't read newspapers.
Pretty good idea, actually.
Well, but it's amazing how much news you still hear, even though I don't seek it out. Like, I still hear it, and people are often will tell me a story or see something on Facebook or whatever. But no, I don't feel extremely influenced by kind of current events or popular culture. But I do think that just living your normal everyday life, you can always, I'm sure that we're influenced maybe even more than we think, even if we can't point to a specific thing that influenced us.
And how many books have you written so far?
Yeah, well, my 5th book will be coming out the beginning of next month. 4 of them are novels, and then I have 1 nonfiction book for writers.
Oh, do you find that there's a difference between nonfiction and fiction? It's like different mindsets?
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned earlier that I started my writing business in 2008. And so that has been kind of a patchwork quilt of journalism and website writing for businesses, and more recently focusing more fiction work, which I love. But it's definitely 2 kind of separate parts of my brain. So when I work on fiction, I feel much more creative, and that there's a lot more of me that shows up on the page. Whereas when I'm doing the nonfiction work, it's much more, generally much more factual and deadline driven and cut and dried.
And what kind of nonfiction books have you published?
Nonfiction, did you say?
Yep.
I published just one. It's called the 15-Minute Novelist, and it's basically this method that I started using and finally had success in finishing a full-length novel. And I basically do it by, it sounds kind of crazy, but I do it by writing for 15 minutes Monday through Friday. And
oh, wow.
How I've written all my books.
That's great. That was going to be one of my questions, was about how you write and your writing style. So there you go. You can even read a book about it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Do you find that from if you get interaction from your readers, like are they interested also in maybe becoming writers themselves?
Yeah, I have had several readers at like author events that I've attended, or book signings, or just places where I'm around other people that love books. And sometimes it does come up that readers, especially like true bookworms who are also very creative, they generally have an interest in writing, and they'll be all over the spectrum. Like, some people haven't maybe just written a short story, and then other people have a full first draft done, and it's just so interesting to me, and such an privilege. I get so excited when people tell me about their work and kind of where they are and what their process is. I love that.
Where do you usually write? And I know it's kind of hard to pin down a average day, but what kind of is your average day for writing your novels?
Yeah, so I mentioned that I generally write in 15-minute increments. What I do is, because it's easy to get overwhelmed by the thought of I'm writing a book, like 70,000 words or whatever, it's easy to get very overwhelmed by that. So I just break it down and say, I set smaller deadlines, first of all, and then every work day, Monday through Friday, I tend to use the first 15 minutes of my work day just for my fiction writing. And during that time, I don't do any editing. I don't do any research. I'll highlight stuff sometimes if I know that I need to go back and figure things out or do the research. But I really just sit and write for those 15 minutes. And if I'm really feeling in the mood and everything's kind of clicking and I don't have really pressing client projects waiting for me, then I'll keep going past the 15 minutes. But at least I know that I have that 15 minutes, kind of like my sacred priority time. And then the rest of the day, just kind of, I work in generally 50-minute increments, 50 50. and try to get up and take a break every so often. And because I work at home, I'll like run upstairs and clean something or put some clothes away or whatever, or do dishes, but just so I'm moving around. I find if I sit too much, like everything slows down.
Your series, you said one of your books was called Epidemic?
The first, yeah, so I have 2 standalone books, Epidemic and then Dark Circle. And then I started what may be a trilogy or it may be a series, I'm not sure, but that one is called, it's the Tate Waters Mysteries. So the first one is out, and then the second one comes out the beginning of next.
I really like your covers. That subversion cover is really cool. Kind of reminds me like an Elmer Leonard type book. Do you do the covers yourself?
No, I did the one for Dark Circle, and the others I had done.
Oh, very nice.
My designer, he'll be very happy to hear that.
Okay, yeah. I've always enthralled with covers too. It's kind of like the first thing that gets us, isn't it? Isn't it interesting how that works?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your work in progress? Maybe it's a little sneak peek at what you're working on right now and when it's going to be out?
Sure. Thanks. So right now I'm working on another I think it's going to be a standalone. I'm not sure yet, but it's got a tentative title of Shadow in the Woods. And it's about a psychologist, actually, who these 2 psychologists who take a small group of clients who are dealing with anxiety issues out for a long weekend backpacking trip. And the point of it is to kind of get in touch with nature and use nature as a therapist. And there have actually been a lot of studies done. So I guess I am somewhat influenced by popular culture. There have been a lot of studies done about the impact that nature has on us and helping with depression and anxiety and all kinds of things. So, but unfortunately for this group of people, there's something sinister in the woods. And so as the weekend progresses, all these crazy things start happening to them, and it doesn't end up being very
Yeah, it's not going to be good on their mental health or physical, sounds like, huh? That sounds awesome. That sounds like a really cool plot. Looking forward to that one. So how many books do you try to publish a year?
I did 2 last year, 1 in 2013, 2 in 2014. This year it'll be 3, but one of them was the nonfiction book, and it was much shorter. Mm-hmm. So I'd say on average probably 2, but I'm certainly not, I don't push myself as hard as some authors. I know that there are other people who are like, oh, every 30 days or every 90 days I put a book out. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. But I really want it to most of all be fun for me and to remain like a creative outlet. So in order for me to have that happen, I don't want to push myself too hard. So I'd say 2, but I'm fine if it's 1, or even if it turns out to be every other year, like that's fine too.
And do you like interact with your readers like on Facebook and Twitter, and are you on all those social media outlets?
Yeah. Yep, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, though I try not to go on there very often because it's like a black hole to me. I'm so like, wow, this is so cool. I'm just going to click here and click there, and I get lost. So yeah, mostly Twitter, also on Facebook, and obviously my blog.
Yeah, and if your listeners on wherever you're listening to this, there should be links down below, and I'll have links out to your websites and on Facebook and Twitter too, so they can so that listeners can reach out to you. Do you have anything else that you would like to say to listeners, fans who like to read thrillers, or maybe even are dreaming someday of maybe writing their own?
Yeah, I'd say just have fun with whatever it is that you're doing. If you really just enjoy reading thrillers and suspense, then just keep reading away, keep trying new authors, keep asking for book recommendations. It's easier than ever now with like Goodreads to find some really cool groups and have some kind of conversation with other readers. And absolutely, if you're interested in writing, especially writing a full-length book, it's completely possible. And I always tell people, don't be overwhelmed by that final goal. Just like somebody that's running a marathon, they don't start out the very first day thinking like, oh, I'm going to run all 26 miles today and make sure I know how to do it. Like, you just start in little tiny segments and you build your way up. And it's the same thing with writing.
It's like baby steps.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining the show and for sharing about your work, and we appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Alan. It was a pleasure.
Okay, bye.
Bye.